My wife left for a month with the hot new neighbor. I filed for divorce. She tried to fix it, but I'm not a backup. My wife asked for a 1-month break so she could explore her feelings with the hot new neighbor and then decide if she still wanted to be married to me. She actually sat across from me at our kitchen table, looked me in the eyes, and said she wanted to spend 30 days living with another guy to see if there's something real there. And if it didn't work out, well, then she'd come back, and we could focus on us. Like I was some kind of safety net she could crawl back to if her little adventure didn't pan out. Hey, my name is Mike. I'm 31, and up until a few months ago, I honestly thought my life was pretty stable. I'm a software developer, nothing flashy. I had a decent house in a quiet neighborhood, a routine that made sense, and a marriage I truly believed was solid. No big drama, no wild twists. Just a simple, calm life with the woman I loved. At least, that's what I thought. Then our new neighbor moved in. Younger guy, personal trainer, the kind of fit, confident dude who could have walked straight out of a fitness ad. And slowly, little by little, my wife's attention started drifting in his direction. At first, it was harmless, neighborly small talk, a joke in the driveway, a quick chat over the fence. Then, it turned into longer conversations, new jogging routines, and her phone being guarded like it held nuclear codes. And one quiet Saturday morning, she finally said the words that snapped everything into focus. I think I have feelings for Jake, but here's where things get interesting. Instead of begging her to stay or competing with the guy next door, I did something she did not expect at all. While she spent a month figuring things out with him, I started quietly planning a future that did not include her. To understand how wild that conversation was, you have to know where we started. I've never been the big dream, big drama type. I'm the simple, introverted software developer guy. I like predictable routines, quiet evenings, and the kind of life where the craziest decision you make is which takeout place you're ordering from on Friday night. When I met Laura almost 8 years ago, it felt like someone had dropped color into a black and white movie. I was 23, fresh out of college, working my first real job. She was 22, working as an assistant at a marketing agency, still trying to figure out what she wanted long term. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, one of those backyard setups with cheap paper plates, overcooked burgers, and folding chairs sinking into the grass. I was standing off to the side, doing what I always do at social events, planning my escape in my head. That's when she walked up, looked at me, and made a teasing comment about how I looked like I was calculating the fastest route to the door. I don't even remember what I said back. I just remember she laughed, and somehow, that broke the ice. We ended up talking for the rest of the evening. She was loud, funny, and full of stories. I was quieter, but she seemed to like that. Where I was careful and logical, she was spontaneous. She loved last-minute road trips, random restaurant hunts, and trying new things just because they felt right in the moment. I became the grounded one, checking the budget, watching the weather, making sure the car had gas before we took off. She used to joke that I was her brakes, and she was my gas pedal. It worked, or at least, it really felt like it did. After 3 years of dating, we got married. Nothing fancy. No huge ballroom or ice sculptures. Just a small ceremony with family, close friends, simple food, and a lot of genuine smiles. We bought a little 2-bedroom house in a quiet suburb. It wasn't some luxury place, but it had a tiny yard, decent neighbors, and enough space to feel like ours. We settled into a rhythm. I went to work, came home, we had dinner, watched shows, went on the occasional date night. It was simple, but it felt safe. Laura eventually stopped working and became a stay-at-home wife. That was her choice. She said office life drained her, and she liked managing the house, running errands, and keeping things cozy. I didn't mind. My income covered our bills, and I thought we were on the same team. We decided to wait on kids. Not never, just not yet. We told ourselves we'd wait until we were more financially stable, more prepared, more ready for that next step. It felt like a mutual decision. From the outside, it probably looked like a normal, stable marriage. And then Jake moved in next door. He showed up after the older couple who lived there before sold their place and retired to Florida. Jake was around 28, younger than most people in the neighborhood. personal trainer, fit, tanned, muscular. The kind of guy who looks like he lives in gym shorts and protein shakes. You couldn't miss him if you tried. He was always outside doing something. Washing his car, running laps, mowing his lawn shirtless, installing a pull-up bar in his yard. There was always some reason for him to be out there. And, of course, Laura noticed him immediately. We officially met when he walked over one Saturday morning to introduce himself. He was friendly, confident, easy to talk to. The kind of guy who could charm a room in 5 minutes. Laura jumped into conversation like she'd known him for years. I just stood there, smiling and nodding, thinking it was all harmless. At first, it really did seem harmless. Laura has always been outgoing. She chats with the cashier at the grocery store, the mailman, the barista who spells her name wrong. So when she started making small talk with Jake in the yard, it didn't set off alarms immediately. It started with quick moments. She'd go out to get the mail and somehow end up talking to him for 10 minutes. She'd water the plants and pause at the fence because he happened to be outside stretching or wiping down his car. Little stuff, nothing you could point at and say, "That's wrong." One day, I came home from work and saw them standing in the driveway. Laura was holding a basket of laundry like she'd been on her way to the garage, and Jake was leaning against his car, laughing at something she said. When I walked up, they both turned like they just remembered I existed. Jake was just telling me about this new gym equipment he ordered, Laura said casually. I shrugged it off. I told myself I was overthinking it. A week later, she decided to bake cookies. She hadn't baked anything in months. I thought they were for us, until I saw her carrying a plate across the yard. Just being neighborly, she said when I asked. Again, technically true. She'd taken brownies to other neighbors before. It wasn't totally out of character. But then came the workout clothes. Out of nowhere, she bought a new set of bright tight leggings and a matching top. Not her usual style for lounging around the house. When I asked, she said she wanted to start jogging again. You know, get back in shape. Funny timing, because Jake jogged almost every morning. Sure enough, her new jogging routine started right now. As I was leaving her, I saw her inside. She was stretching, and he was showing her how beautiful she was. I didn't say anything. I just waited, drove off, and tried to do more than not honestly. After that, the whole thing stopped making sense. Laura had always been someone who liked attention, but now it was a different sort of attention to attention. It wasn't just, oh, the neighbors are around. It was detailed updates about his workouts, his clients, his dog plans, his favorite protein shakes. Jake said this. Jake recommended that. Jake thinks I should try this stretch. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Her eyes lit up a little more. Her voice got a little lighter. It was subtle, but once you notice that change, you can't unsee it. Then her phone habits shifted. She'd always scrolled social media openly on the couch. If a notification popped up, she didn't care if I saw. But now, if I walked into the room, the screen would flip down. She'd lock it faster. Angles changed. Her body language went guarded. One night, I glanced over and saw Jake's name at the top of her screen on Instagram. She quickly scrolled past like it was nothing. But I'd already seen enough. I was just checking out his fitness posts, she said. He puts up good tips. I wanted to believe that. I really did. So I pushed it down and told myself I was being insecure. But the laughter over the fence got louder. The driveway talks got longer. The just being friendly moments started feeling like rehearsals for something else. I still hadn't said anything to her. Part of me didn't want to be the jealous, controlling husband. The other part of me, the part that noticed every glance and every secretive phone tilt, knew something was shifting. I decided to stop making excuses and start paying attention. The day everything snapped into focus started like any other lazy Saturday. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table scrolling through the news on my phone. The house was quiet, just the low hum of the fridge and the smell of fresh coffee. For a few minutes, it felt peaceful. If you'd paused time right there and asked me, I would have said my life was fine. About an hour later, Laura shuffled in. Pajamas, messy hair, phone in her hand. Nothing unusual at first. But the second she sat down across from me, I could tell something was off. She fingers tapping the table, eyes flicking to her phone, then to the window, then back down, not really looking at me. "You okay?" I asked, setting my phone aside. She nodded too quickly, then shook her head. "Actually, no," she sighed. "We need to talk." Those 4 words feel like a punch when you've been in a relationship long enough. They rarely lead anywhere good. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "Okay, what's going on?" She stared at the table for a second, like she was rehearsing in her head. Then she looked up at me. "I don't really know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it," she began. "I think I have feelings for Jake." For a moment, the room went silent. I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. "What?" I asked, leaning forward. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she rushed out. "It just happened. We've been spending time together and I feel this connection, and now I'm confused." Confused. Of all the words she could have used, that one stung the most. She wasn't just saying she'd messed up. She was saying she didn't know if she still wanted what we had. My mind spun. Was she leaving? Was she confessing to fix things? Was this the part where she apologized? Then she told me what she really wanted. She wanted a month with him to figure things out. She said it like it was some reasonable compromise. "I don't want to throw away what we have without being sure," she explained. I don't want to live with regrets. If I take a month and it doesn't work with Jake, then we can really focus on us." She was talking like this was some kind of trial period. Like our marriage was a subscription she could pause while she tested out a free sample next door. "So, what are you saying?" I asked. "You want to take a month and stay with him?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Kind of, yeah. Just to clear my head and see what I really want." Something in me flipped. On the outside, I stayed calm. On the inside, that was the moment the relationship ended for me. You don't ask your husband for a 1-month hall pass with the neighbor if you actually still value your marriage. But instead of exploding, I leaned back in my chair. "If that's what you think you need," I said slowly, "go ahead." She blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree that easily. Her eyes searched my face, trying to read me. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I know it's a lot to ask." "Do what you need to do," I repeated. She let out this relieved sigh, like she'd just made a brave, grown-up decision. She even reached across the table to touch my hand and thank me for understanding. I got up, took my hand back, and grabbed my coffee. Inside, I was done. If she was willing to walk out to chase some fantasy with Jake, I wanted to see just how far she'd go. The next few days were surreal. Laura moved around the house packing a small bag. She talked about it like she was going on a short trip, not walking out on our marriage. "It's just for a month," she kept saying. "I don't want this to be permanent. I just need clarity." She told me she'd be staying with Jake, like it was nothing. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't make speeches about love or loyalty. I just watched her zip up her duffel bag, sling it over her shoulder, and walk out the front door, straight toward the house next door. When the door closed behind her, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't the heavy, suffocating kind of silence you get after a big fight. It was empty, but in a clean way, like someone had finally turned off a TV that had been running in the background for years. I stood in the living room and waited for the wave of heartbreak to hit. It didn't. I felt sad, sure, but more than anything, I felt strangely calm, like the pretending was finally over. I threw myself into work, stayed late at the office, took on extra tickets. When I wasn't working, I went to the gym. I'd never been a gym guy before, but pushing myself physically felt better than sitting at home replaying conversations. Friends started noticing she wasn't around. When they asked, I kept it vague. "She's staying with a friend for a bit," I'd say. I wasn't ready to unpack the full story. The only person I told everything to was my dad. After I laid it all out, there was a long pause on the line. Then he said, "Son, if she doesn't know your worth, why would you wait for her to figure it out?" That sentence stayed with me. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at our wedding photo on the shelf. In that picture, we looked so sure, so locked in. Two people who thought they were signing up for "till death do us part," not "till the hot neighbor moves in." The longer I stared at it, the less it felt like a happy memory. and the more it felt like a screenshot from a life that didn't really exist anymore. My dad's words kept replaying in my head. If she doesn't know your worth, why would you wait for her to figure it out? Up until then, I'd been stuck in this mental loop, asking what I did wrong, what I could fix, what I could do to make her choose me again. But once I really sat with that sentence, the question flipped. Why was I acting like I needed to be chosen at all? By the end of that week, I knew I was done waiting. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney and booked an appointment. Sitting in that office felt surreal. I laid out the whole story: neighbor, feelings, 1 month trial, moving in next door. I half expected the lawyer to look at me like I was joking. He didn't. He listened, nodded, and when I finished, he said, "You're well within your rights to file. This clearly falls under irreconcilable differences." Hearing those words out loud made something click. Irreconcilable differences. That was it. We weren't on the same team anymore. Maybe we hadn't been for a long time. He walked me through the process, what to expect, what I needed to prepare. By the time I walked out of that office, I felt lighter. For the first time since this started, I wasn't waiting on her decision. I was making my own. Once the paperwork was in motion, my focus shifted. Back home, I started quietly preparing for the future I already knew was coming. I opened a separate account, just in case things got messy later. I walked through the house and mentally sorted everything into mine, hers, and doesn't matter. I didn't move her stuff yet. I didn't throw anything out. I just stopped seeing it as ours. The days stretched into weeks. The silence in the house became normal. I'd come home, make dinner for one, watch a show, sleep on my side of the bed. No constant chatter, no small arguments over dishes or laundry. It was odd at first, then it became peaceful. Meanwhile, the neighborhood grapevine started doing what it does best. One neighbor mentioned seeing Laura and Jake at the park, looking very comfortable together. Another said they'd spotted them at a cafe downtown, sitting on the same side of the booth. Someone else casually dropped, "They make kind of a cute couple, I guess." On the outside, I just nodded and kept my face neutral. On the inside, it was a cocktail of anger and pity. Anger, because she had thrown away years of our life for a guy she barely knew. Pity, because I could see where this was likely headed. Jake never struck me as the settle down and build a life type. He seemed like the fun-for-now guy, and she'd bet our whole marriage on that. By the third week, I realized something important. I wasn't checking my phone for her anymore. I wasn't waiting for a text, a call, an apology, or some grand "I made a mistake" speech. If she reached out, she reached out. But with or without that message, my path was already set. The message finally came on a random weekday evening. I had just gotten home from work, kicked off my shoes, and was scrolling through my email when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Laura. "Can we talk?" No explanation, no apology, just that. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, she was standing there with that same duffel bag she'd left with. Except now, she looked smaller somehow. Tired, less glowing, more drained. "Hey," she said softly. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked into the living room like she still lived there, then hesitated when she saw how neat everything was. No extra clutter, no shared mess, just my things. We sat down across from each other. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she started. "Mike, I think I made a mistake," she said. I was confused and selfish, and I didn't realize what I had until I walked away from it. There it was, the speech everyone tells you to wait for. She talked about how things with Jake weren't what she imagined, how the connection she thought they had didn't feel so deep once real life kicked in, how he was fun, but not stable, exciting, but not dependable, how she missed home. "I know I hurt you," she said, eyes watering, "but I want to fix this. I want to come back. I'm willing to cut contact with Jake, go to counseling, whatever it takes. I don't want to lose us." Old me might have grabbed onto those words like a lifeline. This version of me didn't. Because while she spent a month figuring out if I was still worth loving, I spent a month learning I didn't need to audition for that role. I let her finish talking. I didn't interrupt. I didn't yell. I just sat there, listening, while she tried to rewrite the story into something softer than it really was. When she finally ran out of words, she looked at me, waiting for a reaction. "Are you done?" I asked quietly. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay," I said. "Then I'm going to be honest with you." I told her about the lawyer, about the appointment, about the paperwork that was already in progress, about how, the same week she moved her bag into Jake's place, I started moving my life out of this marriage. Her face went pale. You filed for divorce?" she asked like the idea had never crossed her mind. "I started the process. Yes," I replied. "I'm not your backup plan, Laura. You don't get to test drive a relationship with the neighbor and then come back here if it doesn't work out." She tried to argue. She said it was just a mistake, that she'd been confused, that it wasn't really cheating because she needed time to think. She said we had history, memories, a life together. She said walking away over one bad decision wasn't fair. But that month wasn't one bad decision. It was a choice. Every single day she stayed there was a choice. "I didn't leave you," I said calmly. "You left me. I just refused to sit here and hold the door open in case you changed your mind." She cried. She said I was being cold. She said people can work through worse. Maybe they can. But I wasn't interested in fighting to be someone's second option. So I stayed firm, respectful, clear. We would handle the divorce fairly, but we were done. After she left that night, the house felt different again. Not because she was gone physically, she'd already been gone for a month, but because this time, the door closed on my terms. There was no more waiting, no more hoping, no more checking my phone to see if she'd finally realized something. The weird part is, the pain didn't hit all at once like a punch. It came in smaller waves, little flashes of our past road trips, lazy Sundays. Inside jokes followed immediately by the image of her walking to the neighbor's house with a duffel bag. For a while, I kept asking myself, was I not enough? Was I too boring? Too calm? Too predictable? But eventually, that question got old. Because the truth is, asking if you were enough for someone who is willing to leave like that is the wrong question. The real question is, why am I measuring my worth by the choices of someone who didn't respect me? What I learned from all of this is simple. If someone asks for a break to try being with another person, they're already gone. Love without respect and loyalty is just chaos with nice memories. You're allowed to walk away instead of sitting there, waiting to be chosen. It still hurts sometimes. It probably will for a while. But these days, when I look at that old wedding photo, I don't see a future I lost. I see a version of myself who didn't know his own value yet. So that's how my wife left me for the hot new neighbor, and ended up shocked when I refused to be her backup plan. Some people hear this story and say, "You should have fought harder." Others say, "You should have kicked her out the second she mentioned his name." For me, the line was clear the moment she asked for a month with him to figure things out. If you need to try someone else to know whether you want me, the answer is already no. Let me throw this to you. If your partner sat you down and said they wanted 30 days to go stay with someone else, no matter how honest they tried to sound, what would you do? Would you give them that time and hope they come back? Or would that be the point where you close that chapter for good? Have you ever been treated like a second option, or felt like someone kept you on the sidelines just in case their other choice didn't work out? How did you handle it? Tell me in the comments, because there are a lot of people out there going through quiet versions of this same story, and they need to know they're not crazy for wanting better. If this story hit home for you, do me a favor. Tap like so it reaches more people. Subscribe if you want more real, messy Reddit relationship stories, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Because trust me, the next story is even wilder.